They was not scared of Suge Knight. They was terrified.
Suge Knight. Just hearing that name could make the toughest dudes in hip-hop freeze up. This wasn't just a record. This was the man who ruled the game with fists, fear, and stories so wild they sounded like horror tales. He didn't negotiate with words.
Suge Knight was a cold gangster.
Yo, Ron.
Hey, man, Suge sending a message. I say, oh, shit.
When Eminem was real, he's like, okay, man. This is when I knew, I'm like, damn, Eminem is a real nigga. These niggas.
He made people bleed. People whispered about him forcing grown men to drink urine, about dangling rivals over balconies just to squeeze a signature. Whether myth or reality, Suge's reputation as the industry's boogeyman was ironclad.
Well, in 1999 at the Source Awards, Suge Knight sent his henchmen, man.
And everybody knew crossing him could cost you more than a career. It could cost your life, but not Eminem. Slim Shady wasn't fazed by Suge, not even for a second. When threats came flying, M didn't back down. He stood firm. No shaking, no begging, just cold defiance.
M was walking to his seat, I'm standing off to the side, and M was cut off on his way to his seat, and all these guys in red shirts surrounded him. And I'm looking at M's face, and I'm looking at these guys. I'm like, something ain't right. So I start making my way around to come up the aisle, and next thing I know, you see all these guys talking about death row, death row. I was like, death row, what does it got to do with him? He said, hey man, Suge sending a message. I was like, oh, yeah.
And that's because Eminem wasn't some Hollywood act. He was Detroit made. This was a kid from 8 Mile, battle tested, raised in chaos, and built to survive anything thrown his way. Suge Knight might have been the most feared man alive in hip hop, but M, he was ready for war.
Where my dogs at?
DMX!
Why yo?
That unshakable energy was tested in front of the whole industry on one of the biggest nights ever, the 1999 Source Awards. Eminem was fresh off the blazing success of the Slim Shady LP.
After that, we got out of there. We called the limo. This is where it gets up. We called the limo. Death Row is still sitting out there waiting for us. The limo's pulling off as we're coming out. Death Row's behind us. It was like, this motherfucker's trying to kill us, man. What they trying to do? What do they want? I don't understand. What do they want?
Yeah, M's ready to swing on someone if he has to.
Yeah, man. You know, like I said, he ain't no punk.
With My Name is blowing up everywhere. Rookie or not, he was the talk of the game, already invited to step on stage and present the Best Live Performer award to none other than DMX. What the cameras didn't capture that night was the real drama. As Eminem walked to his seat, Suge Knight's crew moved in. A wall of muscle surrounding Slim Shady like sharks circling fresh blood. Most rookies would have cracked under that kind of heat, but M, he didn't flinch. He calmly excused himself, went up on stage, presented DMX with the award, and walked back like nothing had happened. Cool on the outside, but the tension was boiling. And Suge's guys weren't finished. When M and his security tried to leave, the goons were waiting outside, posted up and ready. But why would Suge Knight, the head of the most feared label in the game, even care about a young white rapper from Detroit? To understand that, you gotta look at the madness going on inside Death Row Records at the time. Back in the mid-90s, Death Row wasn't just a label, it was an empire. They dropped The Chronic.
Absolutely, and I'm always gonna believe and bet on myself.
Doggy Style and Tupac's All Eyes on Me. Straight classics that made them untouchable. But behind the platinum plaques, the label turned into something darker. Death Row became a symbol of violence.
Well, I don't lead by money. I've never let money lead my life.
Fear and total control, all orchestrated by Suge himself. This wasn't just tough talk. Suge's methods were criminal. He once forced 2 rappers at gunpoint to strip naked and pistol whip them, all because they used the office phones without permission. If anyone stepped out of line, Suge would drag them into the back room and beat them until the walls shook with screams. The staff? They kept their mouths shut, eyes down, pretending nothing was happening. Survival came before truth. Soon, even artists started picking up Suge's brutal playbook. Violence became part of the culture, and chaos was the new normal at Death Row. But not everyone wanted to sink with the ship. Dr. Dre, who only cared about the music, wasn't built for that toxic mess. After walking away from Death Row, Dre launched his own label, Aftermath Records. But Suge Knight took it as betrayal, and when Suge felt betrayed, he made sure you paid for it. He vowed Dre would regret leaving his empire, and at first, it looked like Suge was right. Compared to Death Row's monster hits, Aftermath's first projects flopped hard. Critics said Dre had lost his touch, and fans started whispering that maybe the magic was gone. Suge didn't even have to lift a finger. Dre looked finished.
What the fuck and who the that?
Then fate flipped the script with one cassette tape. While digging through demos with Jimmy Iovine, Dre pressed play and stopped dead in his tracks. What the hell is this? Who is that? The voice he heard was raw, unfiltered, like nothing else out there. It was Eminem, a hungry rapper from Detroit, raised by a single mom, beaten down by poverty, bullying, and every hardship imaginable.
Dr. Dre left first, Pac died. You know, all of those things would kept us at #1. The music changed, the direction changed.
M fought his way through the underground battles, standing out even when the odds were stacked against him. Being a white rapper in a black-dominated genre only made the climb harder, but his lyrical fire couldn't be ignored. In 1998, Dre took the biggest gamble of his career. He signed Eminem to Aftermath. Together, they cooked up the Slim Shady LP, and it flipped the whole game upside down. The album debuted at #1, 2 on the Billboard 200, moving 283,000 copies in the first week.
I seen my cousin Snoop, man. He was like, God, he was sad, man. You know, you could hear in his voice that, I don't want to be here.
It earned Eminem a Grammy for Best Rap Album and cemented Dre's comeback. Just like that, the two became one of hip-hop's deadliest duos. But success always comes with enemies, and Suge Knight was watching every move. By then, Death Row had collapsed. Tupac was gone. Suge was locked up. Snoop Dogg had turned rebel. Keeping friendships with people, Suge labeled as enemies. That defiance drove Suge insane. He even went as far as threatening to kill Snoop, forcing Snoop to cut ties and walk away from the label completely.
Grammy goes to Mr. Controversy, Eminem.
With Snoop gone, Death Row's golden era was over. Suge's empire was crumbling. Meanwhile, Dre and Eminem were thriving, topping charts, racking up awards, and shifting culture. And nothing enraged Suge more than seeing his former protege rise higher than ever with a white rapper by his side. To Suge, their success wasn't just business, it was personal. From that moment on, Eminem became his #1 enemy. Suge Knight wasn't about to let Dre and Eminem shine without throwing dirt their way. In 2002, during an interview with Howard Stern, Suge mocked Eminem's authenticity, questioning if Slim Shady was really from the streets or just some white rapper playing dress-up for hip-hop. But Suge never relied on words alone. He thrived on intimidation. In 1999, Dre and Snoop organized a Death Row reunion party in Hawaii, bringing families, wives, even kids for what was supposed to be a chill getaway. Eminem tagged along, but the vibe flipped the moment they landed. Suge's presence loomed, and the so-called vacation turned tense overnight. And Suge wasn't done. Fast forward to 2001. At 50 Cent's In the Club video shoot, Suge pulled up again.
What do you think of Eminem? Is that what do you think of white rap?
If you really from the ghetto and you really doing those things you rapping about, you talking about, I can respect that.
Right.
But if somebody else writing your rhymes, somebody else, is you telling somebody else's story, that really don't mean nothing.
This time with a squad so deep it looked like an army. But when most would have backed down, Eminem did the unthinkable. He walked straight outside to face Suge and his crew head on. No fear, no hesitation, just pure defiance. Still, Eminem knew he couldn't keep poking the bear. On his 2004 track like Toy Soldiers, he admitted Dre told him straight up to stay out of the feud with Suge, so Slim kept quiet, at least officially. But Suge wasn't finished talking. Years later, on the Collect Call with Suge Knight podcast featuring Cal Williams, he took fresh shots at M, this time trashing Eminem's posthumous collaboration with Tupac. Suge said the project was a flop, calling an album that debuted at #1. One on Billboard and went platinum a flop is wild.
We were all going out. We were supposed to be on vacation and having a good time with our family and kids and wives, and just parlaying, man. As the plane land, they open the door up and you got Honolulu police standing right there talking about, hey, y'all got to come with us. And it was about 20 officers, man. Say, hey, you guys got to come with us. Death Row Records is here and they wreaking havoc.
and fans clapped back instantly, accusing Suge of just trying to stir old beef. Still, some wondered if there was a sliver of truth to it. Here's what really happened. In 2003, Eminem personally reached out to Tupac's mother, Afeni Shakur, asking for her blessing to produce a posthumous album honoring Pac's legacy. She agreed, and in 2004, M dropped Loyal to the Game. It sold big, but reviews were split down the middle. Hardcore Pac fans felt it lacked that raw West Coast grit, saying the polished beats made it sound more like an Eminem record than a true Tupac one. M never directly addressed Suge's digs, but in early 2025, something dropped that had people whispering it might be Slim Shady's subtle clap back. By 2025, Eminem had stayed quiet for years when it came to Suge Knight, but that silence didn't mean the tension was gone. In fact, fans started speculating that M had been waiting for the right moment to fire back, and when he finally moved, it wasn't subtle at all. Early in the year, Slim Shady dropped a verse that instantly set the internet on fire. He didn't name Suge directly, but the bars were razor sharp, talking about boogeymen who used fear to build empires, now left watching from a cage. Listeners immediately connected the dots. Who else could M be referring to but Suge Knight, locked away and still taking shots from behind prison walls? And here's the thing, the diss didn't just land with fans. Word spread fast that Suge himself wasn't happy, and his crew started chirping online, posting cryptic threats and clips from old interviews where Suge laughed off danger. Suddenly, a beef that had been quiet for nearly 2 decades was bubbling again, and people were asking, was Slim about to go to war with the one man no one dared cross? But here's where it gets even crazier. Suge's old ties to Tupac's legacy made the tension deeper. M had once honored Pac through Loyal to the Game, but critics said he changed Pac's sound too much. Suge used that as his favorite talking point, dragging M every chance he got. Now, with Shady's new verse, Pac's name was floating back into the middle of the drama. Fans argued over whether M was protecting his own reputation or reclaiming Pac's in the process. Suge's name carried weight even from behind bars, and his shadow stretched across hip-hop like a storm cloud. The whispers were clear. People close to Suge were furious at Eminem for daring to poke at him after all these years. Old associates began hinting that Shady had crossed the line, and some even suggested that certain West Coast OGs were ready to remind him that Suge's reach didn't end with prison walls. But here's the twist. Eminem didn't back down. Instead, he doubled down. At his live shows, fans started noticing subtle jabs, little ad-libs where M would throw shade at bosses who built legacies on broken bones. The crowd ate it up, roaring every time he threw one of those hidden shots. To them, it was proof that Slim Shady was finally standing eye to eye with hip-hop's darkest legend and not blinking. Meanwhile, the media couldn't get enough of it. Headlines screamed about a renewed war, with tabloids speculating that Dre might step in to cool things down before they spiraled. After all, Dre had lived through Suge's wrath firsthand. And if history taught anything, it was that Suge didn't forget betrayal and he never forgave disrespect. But Suge's power wasn't what it once was. With Tupac gone, Snoop long gone, and Dre thriving on his own, Suge's empire had crumbled. To many, Eminem calling him out now was more symbolic than dangerous, a way of putting the final nail in Death Row's coffin. Still, nobody in the industry dismissed the risk. You don't casually taunt the man who once had entire studios too scared to even answer their phones without permission. By now, the tension had grown into something bigger than just Eminem versus Suge Knight. It became a question of legacy. Hip-hop heads everywhere were debating who really controlled the culture. Was it Suge, the man who once built an empire off fear, or Eminem, the outsider who forced his way in and rewrote the rules? Online, fans split into camps. Some argued Suge was just bitter, a fallen king taking shots because his throne had been snatched away. Others claimed M still owed his career to exploiting Death Row's collapse, and Suge had every right to feel robbed. The arguments got so heated that forums, podcasts, and even mainstream outlets were diving into the history, replaying old interviews and dissecting lyrics like they were courtroom evidence. But Slim wasn't done stirring the pot. At a 2025 festival performance, he shocked the crowd by freestyling a line about ghosts of the row still haunting the game. The reaction was explosive. Social media blew up with clips, and within hours, Suge's name was trending again. To the fans, it wasn't just another diss. It felt like Eminem was finally burying Death Row Records for good, right there on stage. And let's not forget, Suge wasn't alone in that prison cell. He still had allies. still had a name that meant something in the streets. Whispers said his people were itching to clap back, but the truth was clear. Suge's influence was shrinking while Eminem's spotlight was only getting brighter. Then came the bombshell no one saw coming. An unreleased Eminem diss track from the mid-2000s suddenly leaked, and the entire hip-hop world shook. The track, titled Smack You, was so raw and vicious that fans instantly said if it had dropped back then, it could have painted an even bigger target on M's back. Others are already calling it one of the coldest, most savage diss tracks in rap history. In it, Eminem held nothing back. He clowned Ja Rule, mocking his height and even questioning his parenting. But the real shock came when Slim turned his fury towards Suge Knight, straight up accusing him of being involved in the deaths of Tupac and Biggie. That wasn't just a diss. That was a direct swing at the most feared figure in hip-hop. The fact that Eminem even recorded something this bold proves what fans have always known. Slim Shady isn't scared of anybody. Whether it's Ja, Suge, or the entire industry, he's always ready to stand his ground no matter the risk. What do you think? Should M have dropped Smack You back in the 2000s, or was holding it back the smarter move? Sound off in the comments. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe if you want more deep dives like this.